Dan yadin anamo kachad shifte Yisrael. Dan will avenge his people. The tribes of Israel will be united as one. Now, yadin also means, 278 bottom line, yadin also means to judge. Rashi says he'll take revenge. And this is an allusion to somebody very famous who came from the Shevet of Dan, which is Shimshon, Samson. Now, Samson, unfortunately, I would assume Hollywood has made a movie out of Shimshon, I'm assuming. And I'm assuming that it was either Schwarzenegger or somebody or somebody who plays the lead role, or somebody like that. I would imagine that's Hollywood's idea. Well, yeah, well, I mean, whoever it is, the Hollywood's got their idea of what Shimshon looks like. Now you have to understand, it doesn't say anywhere in the Nach that he pumped iron or that he did steroids or that he was ripped. It doesn't say that. It says that when the Spirit of God rested on him, so then he had a tremendous strength. But Shimshon is much more likely to have looked like Rabbi Samet than like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because it doesn't say anywhere that he. Yes, I didn't say he's very strong, especially when the Spirit of Hashem rests on him. You know, he can do all sorts of things. So it doesn't say by Shimshon; it only says the Spirit of Hashem. Yeah, he does. He's a matzah man, but it doesn't say, like matzah man. He's a macho man. Yeah, it says a matzah man. Yeah, I know, right? So it doesn't say anywhere that he was. It doesn't say anywhere he was big bulging muscles. The answer is that it says the Spirit of God. This is a man who was a prophet. He was a man who was a shofet for 20 years. He was the leader of the Jewish people for 20 years. He was never in a weight room in his life. Now, the Torah then says, so it says he will judge his people like one of the tribes of Israel. So there are commentaries that say that means he related to even his own family members like all the rest of Israel. There was no nepotism. No nepotism. Shimshon did his job as a judge with full objectivity. However, it then says like this: Yehi dan nochash alei derech. Dan is compared to a snake. Shvifon alei orach, a viper. Is that how I translate it? Oh, tell me. A viper, yes. A viper on the path. I thought maybe he'd say servant. Hanoshechi kvesus, he bites the heels of the horse. Ve'yipol rochvo ochor. And the rider then falls backwards, and he ends with Lishuas HaKivisi Hashem. And Rashi says Lishuas HaKivisi Hashem was what Shimshon said when he was between the pillars, that last prayer. Shimshon says, please Hashem, after the Plishtim blinded him, said, please Hashem, give me one more burst of strength, and he brought down the house, which, by the way, is where I imagine the expression comes from. Because like many other expressions, Shimshon pushed out the pillars, that the entire stadium was resting on the whole thing collapsed in, and thousands were killed in the collapse. Along with Shimshon, he killed more people in the collapse than he had during his very, very, what's the word, strange, very peculiar, very difficult to understand, anomaly. I don't know what the verb form is, an anomalous lifetime. He had a very, very difficult person to understand. So one of the commentaries points out like this. Well, if you take a look at the life of Shimshon, he was born to parents, he became a Nazarite, he had this long hair, he marries these Plishti women, which he converts each one of them. But it creates a problem, and each time he converts one and he gets into a fight with the Plishtim themselves, and he kills some Plishtim. So the commentators say, you see, part of Shimshon's plan, Shimshon had a problem. He wants to fight the Plishtim. He wants to save the Jewish people. But he doesn't want there to be a backlash on the Jewish people. So he actually creates a camouflage. You know what his camouflage is? He makes himself look like a Jewish renegade. He makes himself look like he's chasing Plishti women, so that the Jewish community themselves ostracize him. So now whatever he does to the Plishtim, there won't be a backlash against, because the Jewish people say, well, he's not one of ours either. He's not doing that for us. He's doing this on his own. And he keeps finding excuses. If you go through the Nach, he finds excuses on a personal level. He finds excuses on a personal level to lash out against the Plishtim, so that there's no backlash against him on a personal level. You understand what's going on here? Well, what creature is that comparable to? That's a snake. That's the blessing of a snake. Shimshon will be, what does a snake do? Snake is uses camouflage. Right? Don't you ever see a snake? And sometimes you can see a snake, you're looking right at the snake and you can't see him. The snake blends in with the background. Shimshon resorts to this camouflage in order to protect the Jewish people. So on the one hand, I could strike out, I could lash out against the. Just imagine I'm a Haredi, and I would like to. I'm upset with the tax authorities, but I don't want that there should be a backlash against the Haredi community. I'm going to use this as an example, some strange example. I don't want there to be a backlash against the Haredi. Let's say you get a vigilante Jew who decides to go after Arabs. That's a better example. Problem is, if a vigilante Jew goes after the Arabs, there's going to be a backlash on all the other Jews. But what if the vigilante Jew is thrown out of the Jewish community, and then he starts getting upset that he says, hey, those Arabs over there owe me money. And he goes over the Arabs for the money, and he kills Arabs because he says they owe him money. Now there won't be a backlash against the Jewish community because he had nothing to do with it. He's not one of yours, and it wasn't a nationalistic issue. It was a private issue. That's what Shimshon does. This whole thing is a camouflage. He finds excuses to lash out at the Plishtim in order to protect the Jewish people. All it is a way of protecting the Jewish people. Now, the last three words he says is Lishuas Chakivisi Hashem. I hope for your salvation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the commentaries explain why is that? What's that got to do with Shimshon? Okay, which is also very, very strange. The answer is that the same way that what he did was mysterious, God's salvation could also be very, very mysterious. God's salvation is very, very mysterious. You find people in life who all of a sudden, they have no way, you have no idea where that salvation is coming from. And all of a sudden, in the strangest way, under the strangest circumstances, that's where God's salvation comes from. He sold books. He used to sell books. He's like a traveling salesman in Israel, and he was selling books in the north of the country. Somewhere, where was he? Where did he tell me it was? Maybe Migdal Ha'im, I can't remember. Where, somewhere up north. And so some secular woman comes over to him on the street. She says, hi, you're Haredi. Can you help us? We're making a Chanukah Sabayis. Chanukah Sabayis is inaugurating the new home. Can you come up to my home to put up a mezuzah for us? The guy says, okay, I'll put up a mezuzah for you. Why not? So he puts up the mezuzah. Not in the house full of people. They're all secular. And I say, puts up the mezuzah. Okay. About 3 weeks later, he does his route. He ends up back in that same city to sell books. And he makes a wrong turn somewhere on the street, a traffic violation. So a cop stops him, an Israeli cop says, about to write him out a ticket. He looks at the guy and says, hey, 1 second, you look very familiar. Where did I know you from? The guy said, I had no idea. I know who you were. 3 weeks ago, my mother made a Chanukah Sabayis, and you're the guy who came up and put up the mezuzah in my mother's house. You know what, I'm not giving you a ticket, just be careful over here. So Hashem's salvation comes in strange places. I knew a Rav who got pulled off a plane because he forgot his tefillin in the terminal. Forgot his tefillin in the plane terminal, started fighting with them. They say, let me off. I got to get my tefillin. No, you can't go. You get off, you're staying off. He said, I got to get my tefillin. He wouldn't fly without the tefillin, so he got off. The plane crashed at the Twin Towers. That was on 9/11. His tefillin. He got off to get his tefillin. He ended up not being on the plane. So he does that. Sometimes Hashem's salvation, Lishuas Hakivisi Hashem. You never know where Hashem's salvation is coming from. Sometimes salvation comes in the strangest of places. Situations where people have no idea. I had a female cousin. She was about 25. Which in the frum world for a girl is old. It's very old. And her mother was a shadchan. And she was networked with all the shadchanim all over the United States, probably every shadchan in the world. And she had files. She had these what do you call it? These notebooks. These file notebooks and and what do you call it? Email. Shadchan. And they're trying for years. They were trying. Mother and daughter went shopping for fruits and vegetables in Pete's Fruit Shop. Across the street, there was a lady, they have neighbors live across the street from them. The aunt was visiting from New York. Aunt was visiting the neighbors across the street. She happened to go, she was walking around, she decided she'd go buy a banana and an apple. So she walked into Pete's Fruit Shop. She saw she saw a girl in there. She says, hey, she'd be perfect for my nephew Shimmy. Right? 3 weeks later, they were engaged. Right? He says, so Pete is the shadchan, right? Pete's Fruit Shop. Sometimes like salvation is a person that never knows where. You just never know. That's Lishuas Hakivisi Hashem. That's how strange. The same way that Shimshon did things which are incomprehensible. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu does things to people where you only find out when you look back what the divine plan is. Maybe you get a little bit of an insight into the divine plan. Okay, Yosef dies, and then then we go to the book of Shmos. Okay, so it says that Yosef dies, and he gives the Jewish people the code word, Pakod Yifko, that Hashem will eventually take you out of Egypt. Okay, so the Jewish people are firmly ensconced in Egypt. Then we go to page 292. Ve'elish Shmos b'nei Yisrael aboyim Mitzrayma, Es Yaakov Ishu Beisovel. These are the names of the Bnei Yisrael who are coming to Egypt. Literally, Haboyim means they're coming to Egypt. Es Yaakov, along with Yaakov, Ish Uvesobo, each man in his family came. And it goes and it mentions the names of the Shvatim. Now, in this pasuk over here, Rashi, we have to see the first Rashi over here. There's a lot to talk about here. So it says, Ve'elish Shmos b'nei Yisrael aboyim Mitzrayim, says Rashi, Afal pi, even though shemina'un b'chayehem, even though it counted them while they were alive, bishmosam, by their names, chazar u'mina'un b'misasam. Says Rashi, goes and counts them again in their death. Lehodiach hibasam, to let you know the belovedness. Shenimshelu lekochavim, they are compared to stars. Shemotziin u'machnisin b'mispar u'v'shemosam, they bring them in and take them out by number and by name. So the Jewish people are counted constantly because the Jewish people are comparable to the stars. Now, the first question over here is, this is the beginning of the exile. And, I think we could talk about the exile. We get to the Pesach Seder. And at the Pesach Seder, what do we do the whole night?
Drink wine.
Well, that's what some of us do, Gil. That's true. We certainly drink a lot of wine. That's certainly true. You should know, I get more affected. I don't know why. Every year I get, no matter how much I drink on Purim, I drink and I drink it, and I get to a point where I can't drink anymore, and I never quite get over into Pesach. I am absolutely looped by the wine. I don't know why it is. 4 cups of wine, and by Pesach, by the 3rd cup, I'm what do you call it? I'm toast. And but we start eating already. It's true, and I'm not fasting because I go into that. I make sure not to be starving. And I always thought it was on an empty stomach, but I don't know. I think I get to the Seder. Maybe you're right. I don't know. It hits me. Maybe it's the distance between the cups. And I'm always thinking, okay, if after the 3rd cup doesn't come till after the meal, and I've had a break, I hit the 3rd. By the time I get to the 4th one, I'm spinning. I don't know why it is. So we don't drink wine the whole night, but we do drink a little bit more than we normally drink. And I drink small amounts. I'm not even drinking big amounts. Okay. So we go to the pay, but what's the theme of the evening?
The Exodus of Egypt.
We're thanking God, right?
Thanking God.
Thank you for taking us out of Egypt. What's the obvious question?
Why'd you leave Egypt?
What's that?
Why'd you put us in Egypt?
Well, don't put me there. I won't thank you. Don't put me into Egypt. I want to have to thank you for taking me out. It's like walking over to the bully. Bully's standing over you with a fist. He's about to punch you. He gets up and he walks away. Thank you so much for your compassion. I really appreciate it. That's so nice of you. That is so good of you. What does that mean? What does that mean? Why are we doing that? So I heard from Rabbi Leff the following. Imagine the following. Guy's walking on a street, and a guy walks up to him, takes a metal bar, and he smashes his kneecaps. Smashes his kneecaps. And the guy's in agony. He says, listen, I'm a top surgeon. I can fix you up. And does surgery, fix him up good as new. Even better than new. You think you should thank the surgeon? Hey, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate that. That was really good of you to break my kneecaps. And then what do you call it? Okay? There you wouldn't feel that you need to thank him. Okay? Now, scenario number 2, the guy takes the same thing. Guy's walking on the street. Guy walks up with a metal bar, smashes his kneecaps. He says to him, listen, I happen to be an orthopedic surgeon. I can tell by the way you're walking that you're suffering from a very rare disease. In 10 more minutes of lack of treatment, you have been crippled for your entire life. Once I was able to get to you and break your bones, and I'll put them back together in a way that you're going to be fine. Now you're going to be able to walk straight your entire life. Would you say there's a difference in the scenarios? In scenario number 2, there's a purpose for what he did. Okay? So obviously there's a purpose for what the Jewish people did. Because Baruch Hu put the Jewish people to Mitzrayim for a purpose. Why is that? I mean, there's obviously a difference. Why did he put them in Mitzrayim? You heard this just recently? Somebody was based on your smiles, I assume you. So who did you hear this from?
I heard this a long time ago, actually.
Okay, could be for me. Maybe it was a different lifetime. Yeah. The Jewish people need a certain treatment over here. Why do you need the treatment? It's like if I get a better example for you. If I grab you and I drill your teeth, I drill a hole in your tooth, then I fill. You go, oh, and I put a filling in. All right. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. Don't drill me. I won't need a filling. I say, hey, listen, I did you a favor. I filled you. If you had a hole in your tooth and I filled it, isn't that good of me? Well, don't drill me. You won't need to fill it. You won't need to fill it, right? But if I say, well, I drilled it because there was a bad cavity, and if it would have left it, it would have turned into an abscess, and I drilled it just on time and I got it out, now you'll be okay. Then you owe me a debt of gratitude, like all dentists. Dentists don't generally drill unless they have a reason to drill. Once in a while, they'll miss to do the wrong tooth. They'll never tell you. You'll never know because you can't see, right? But he'll always tell you, yeah, but maybe every once in a while he gets it. Not that one, the next one. So over here, the Jewish people had a problem. Where did that problem start?
That's what I don't know. What is the condition?
Oh, very good. What was their condition? There were two conditions. Condition number one was one flaw. When was the decree made? When was the decree of going into Egyptian exile? Do you remember when the decree was made? When?
To Abraham.
What? No. When was it? Say. What, you're right. What was when? God says to Avram, "Your children are going to inherit this land." What does Avram say? Bama eda ki yirashena. How do I know that I'm going to get this land? Up until now, God said you're going to have a son, you're going to have a child, you're going to be prosperous. No questions. Total faith in God. Oh, bama eda. How do I know? That means that at Avram Avinu's level, asking for a sign means that your faith level is only at 99%, not at 100%. And if it's in you, it's going to be transmitted genetically to your children, spiritual genetics. That means there's a flaw in the faith level of the Jewish people. That means the Jewish people have to be brought to a level where there is absolutely no question in their degree of faith. Where is that lesson going to be learned? Go to Egypt, watch the 10 plagues. You'll see that there's an absolute precise involvement of God in the world. Jews, yes. Egyptians, no. Jews, no. Egyptians, yes. They get suffered from the plagues. They don't suffer from plagues. That's the whole point of the plagues. The whole point of the plagues is just that God is very involved, and you shall have no doubts at all. And if that doesn't help you, watch this. There's a Kriyas Yamsuf. There's splitting of the sea. Now do you have any doubts? Why do they need to go through this 11-step ulpan? Because it was in the spiritual genetics inherited from their forefather Avram Avinu. So they're going down to Egypt because they have to go through this they have to go through the suffering in order to see the redemption. Why? In other words, it was theoretically possible to avoid it all. If we would have absorbed the spiritual genetics from Avram Avinu where we're 100% convinced, then you don't need for it. Then there's no need for it. Then it's drilling a tooth for no reason. But since you do have that degree of doubt, therefore, we need to give you the opan. Number one. There's a second point. Second point is there's a conflict between Yosef and his brothers. That needs to be rectified. No unity. There's a flaw in the unity. How does unity? When do people seem to unite? In difficult circumstances. We're all together. We're in this together. We're in suffering together. We're all pulling for each other. We have no choice but to stick together to ward off a common enemy. And that will create the unity. So both on a faith level and on a unity level, they have to go through what they go through in Egypt in order to strengthen them in the two areas. Go ahead.
I was just gonna. So you mentioned this one lack of faith, but also Abraham, if I remember correctly, he also had a second lack of faith, which is when he called his wife a sister, not a wife.
That's according to the Ramban. You're right. That's according to the Ramban. It wasn't they calling her sister; it was going down to Egypt. Just going down to Egypt was a flaw. According to the Ramban, that was a flaw. Mm-hmm. You should have stuck it out in the land of Israel. God said, go to the land of Israel. What are you going to Egypt for? So that's very good, very good. Could be according to Ramban, it could be that would be included. because it's all part of the same, it's all symptomatic of lack of faith. Whereas Rashi doesn't learn like that, so it could be. It could be. I think also you're right by the sister also. What do you have your sister? Stand up and fight for it. What do you give? And again, other commentators say no, but that's a logical thing. Under you got a better chance by doing that than you do by saying it's your wife and then getting killed for no reason. What are you going to gain by doing that? So again, the different opinions among the commentators, what he should have done under circumstances.
The shouldn't have went there at all.
You shouldn't want to go there. You shouldn't have done. And if you did go there, you shouldn't have done that. And you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't. Why do the logical thing? Don't do the. And the Ramban. No, listen. That's your wife. Stay. It's your wife, and stand up and fight. What? God can't protect you. Could paralyze the whole bunch of them. What's the problem? So you're right. It could be that that's all according to the Ramban. It could be that's included in the whole. What do you call it? That's the idea of coming down to Egypt. Okay, now. The first thing you see over here is it says, these are names of Jewish people coming to Mitzrayim with Yaakov. Each man and his family came. So the Medrash says, it's an interesting thing. This we spoke about, I think, last week. You see that in Jewish, the foundation of the Jewish nation is an attachment to the previous generation. That's the foundation of the Jewish nation. You have, with Yaakov, each man came in his family. They were all family men already. They all had their own children. They may have had grandchildren already. Yet, who are they coming? They're coming along with their father Yaakov. This is our tradition. This is the tradition. This is Jewish. This is secret to Jewish survival. Is our connection to the previous generation. You've heard the famous story with Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky on the airplane with the anthropologist. One of the most famous stories. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was once on a plane. One of the leading. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was. Him and Rabbi Moshe was a contemporary Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. They were essentially the two leaders of the American Jewry. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was on a plane. So the plane takes off. Short while later, his son is on the plane. He says, Dad, Rabbi Yaakov was an older man at this point. His son says, Dad, can I get you something? You need another blanket? You want something? No, fine. His granddaughter is on the plane. Zadie, can I get you something? You're comfortable? No. The whole plane ride, the whole flight, they're all over him. At a certain point, he's sitting next to this anthropologist. The guy turns to him and says, I understand the difference, Rabbi. My kids barely talk to me. My grandchildren only call when they want money. What's the difference between me and you? So Rabbi Kamenetsky says to him, look, my children see the greatest event in history as the giving of the Torah. And since I'm a generation and 2 generations ahead of them, I'm closer to that source of the giving of the Torah. They see me as being on a higher level. They see me as being a higher level person. You, however, and therefore they respect me for that. You, however, are an evolutionist. You believe we come from apes. So your children see you as being 1 generation closer to the apes. So why should they respect you? You should respect them, right? What have you got on them? You're just 1 step closer to the apes. That's exactly the difference. That right there is the difference. We see our ancestors as being 1 step, they're greater than us. There was a power source called, there's the power pack called the giving of the Torah at Sinai. The farther we move away, the lower level we are. We're not on the level of the previous generation. We're not on the level of the Vilna Gaon. We're not on the level of the Rasha. We're not on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. The closer you are, the greater you are, and we believe that. Therefore, we see our elders in a different way. We look at the other generation. Do you know that part of honoring your parents, when you honor your parents, you're not just honoring those 2 people called your parents. When you honor your parents, what you're doing is you're paying tribute to the fact that there's an entire chain coming from Sinai. So when you're honoring your parents, what you're really doing is you're paying tribute to the entire tradition of Judaism. When you honor your parents, you're paying tribute to the entire concept of Torah coming from Sinai, and that you see your parents as them in their level, their generation, as being on a higher level than yours. That's what it means to the previous generation. So when you honor your parents, you're paying tribute to the entire system. Therefore, Eis Yaakov Ishu Beiso Bo. Each man has a family, but they came along with Yaakovino. You know what the Medrash says? The Medrash says that this is another difference. Remember I think we even spoke about this last week, but the Medrash brings it down to this week's Parsha. The normal running of the world is that when a man is young, he's the head guy in his family. He's the main one. Everybody else around him is secondary. He's the guy who calls the shots. As he gets older, eventually he kind of drifts off into You know, he's secondary, and everybody else, the younger people take over. In the Torah world, it doesn't work that way. The older the person is, the greater the Talmid Chacham he is, the more stature he carries in his family. We have respect for the Talmid Chachamim. Therefore, it says, Eis Yaakov Ishu Beisovo. They came along with Yaakov Avinu. Number one. Number two, why are they compared to stars? Why are the Jewish people compared to stars? Rashi says, well, the Jewish people, they come to Mitzrayim, they're compared to stars. Why?
The stars never die.
Stars never die. Interesting. They don't do that. I don't know if they're compared to stars. Why? So there are two. The basic reason is you can't count the stars. Basic reason you can't count the stars. I once read that if you look outside, you're naked. With the naked eye, you can see, the most you could see is you could see about 300,000 stars. That's what you could see, 300,000 stars. I don't know how they make that calculation. That's what I once read. Now, there are two basic ideas. Besides the abundance, you'll be abundant like stars. See, because abundance, frankly, if you look at it, you say it would be like the sand on the sea. There's more sand than, at least from my perspective, there's more sand than there are stars. I'm limited with the sand, you just see grains everywhere. So why is it that the Jewish people are compared to stars? What do you say, Yaakov?
Maybe stars produce their own light.
Good, you're on the right track.
And they give light to the rest of the system, of their system.
Okay, very good.
So light is knowledge, not light is.
Okay. So one of the commentaries says like this: on the one hand, every star, you say stars never die. Every star, we say lakulam shemos yikro. Every star has a name. Every star has a task. God created the whole. So each star, if we know anything about astrology, and there's an astrology, because each star has a function that is but you're part of a bigger group. That's what we always talk about. Each Jew has a role. We spoke about yesterday, but you're part of a bigger unit. Okay. So I heard two other explanations. One of them is that we see this star looks like a little twinkle. The closer you get to a star, theoretically, if you could reach a star, what would you see ultimately? A very bright light. You know, the closer you get to the star, the brighter it would become. A Jew, you see a person. The more you get to know the person, the bigger the person becomes. Wow, I didn't know you do that. Wow, you gave tzedakah too. Wow, and you help little old ladies. Wow, and you're involved in volunteer work. Wow, and you learn a lot of Torah. Wow, I had no idea. You're only looking at a person. The more you know about the person, the bigger he becomes. You know when this really hits, which is unfortunate, when you attend a funeral. You attend the funeral of a frum person. I've been in funerals where they've grappled to find something good to say about people. The guy lived selfishly. He lived for himself. And at a funeral, they never get up at a funeral and say, oh yeah, Frank, wow, he really liked a good car. He drove a nice car. He drove a nice car, and cigars, forget about it. I mean, this guy was Havana was his middle name, right? And what he could do at a bar with a pitcher of beer, they never talk about that. They never talk about that at a funeral, ever. All they talk about is they try to find something. He helped somebody one time. Yeah, I remember one time there's a guy who was walking in the door behind him and he didn't slam the door on his fingers. Yeah, what a nice guy, right? They're always grope. You ever see that? They're never talk. The very things that you live for, they don't talk about at a funeral. They don't talk about that because at the time of death, everybody knows what's not true is not true. We only look for nice things to say about the person because at that moment we know what's really true. When you talk about somebody who's living a life of truth, so their whole life they're living, they're either involved in Torah, Avoda, and Gemilus Chasadim. So then at the funeral, that's what you're going to hear about them. You're going to hear all sorts of wonderful things about them. They helped this one, and they did this for the community, and he learned Torah, and he gave tzedakah. The more you get to know a person, the more you get to know a Jew, the bigger the person becomes. The more you get to know the person becomes brighter. That's why we're compared to stars. Star looks like a little twinkle. The closer you get, whereas most celebrities in the world, in the secular world, the closer you get to them, the tighter you put your fingers over your nose, right? The stench gets worse and worse the closer you get. It smells bad. The closer you get, the worse it is. From a distance, wow, look at him, look at the name. I remember meeting somebody told me he went to a famous athlete. He went to get his autograph. He said, the guy was drunk off his rocker. He told me it was one of my childhood idols. He was drunk off his rocker. I remember Mickey Mantle? Mickey Mantle, the hero of millions, right? Mickey Mantle, the hero of millions. Babe Ruth, the idol of millions. The man was anything that you wouldn't want your own children doing, that's what he did. Right? Anything you wouldn't want your teenagers doing, that's what he did plus, in all areas. So, you know, Mickey Mantle used to go into a restaurant with his wife and his buddies, Billy Martin and the other guys. They would come in, his wife would go to sit down, and he would pull the chair out from under her, and she would go sprawling. And they would laugh and laugh and laugh. Can you imagine such a thing? So I always think, you know, listen, it happened, lady. It happened once, I understand. A second time, you know, it happened more than twice. That's your own fault. Yeah, at that point, you should know. I can't imagine what about, yeah, man, this is the guy, the hero of millions, pulls a chair out from under his own wife. His wife goes, well, you know what a woman, you know what that does to a woman? Husband treats a wife like that? Yeah, it's devastating. I remember the first time I read it, I didn't, but I almost started tearing up. That guy treats his wife. I don't know how a woman feels. The husband pulled the chair. She goes sprawling on the floor, and him and his buddies laugh. And they were drunk as an alcoholic. Mickey Mantle was an alcoholic his whole career. You look at the Torah people, the closer you get, the brighter they are. You spend the day with the Chafetz Chaim, or if you would have spent the day with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, whatever you read in the book would pale in comparison to what you'd see in the actual person himself. It would pale in comparison. You just say, my goodness, look at this star. This is a star. That's why the Jewish people compare to stars. Number 3, when did the stars, a beautiful idea, listen, it's a really beautiful idea. When did the stars come into existence?
Number 4th day.
Why? Why did they come into existence?
To lighten up the sky.
Yeah.
To lighten up the sky? Well, what does the Medrash say? Why did they come into, what's that?
For navigation.
For navigation? What does the Medrash say? Remember the Torah says there were 2 lights were created simultaneously, 2 big lights, the sun and the moon. And the moon came to God and complained, hey, you can't have 2 kings with 1 crown. So what did God say?
I'll make you small.
I'll make you, go ahead. He said, make yourself smaller. Make yourself smaller. So the moon was reduced. But because the moon was reduced and he felt bad, so what did God say? But I'll let you be in charge of this whole army of stars. And the stars were created. So what was the whole creation of the stars? What was their purpose of being created? To appease the moon, to make the moon feel better. The Jewish people are compared to stars. Our job in life is to make sure we make people feel better. Our job in life is to help people feel better. People shouldn't feel worse. When we walk away from somebody, we should ask ourselves, did this person feel better having met me or having worse having met me? What was the real, what just happened when this person met me? That's the job of the Jew. That's why we're compared to stars. Compared to stars in order to have, I once had my sons, you know, the moon, I'm sure the moon was disappointed because that's not what the moon had in mind. When God said, okay, go reduce yourself, you know, I'm sure the moon was thinking, oh, well, you know, this isn't going where I wanted it to. You know, this isn't quite. I was once sitting, I sat down, I think it was like Sunday night, and I took, there was some leftover chicken from Shabbos. 2 pieces of chicken, dry white meat. All right, so I took it, I think I heated it up in the microwave. So my 10-year-old son comes in, he takes it and says, what is that? The chicken. He says, I want a piece. I don't feel like fighting with the kid. I feel like, you know, well, all of a sudden he wants a piece of chicken. When it was good and fresh, he wouldn't eat it. All of a sudden, Daddy's eating it. He wants a piece of chicken. I said, all right. So he's about to eat the chicken, and my 7-year-old son walked in. All right. Here's going back about 15 years. 7-year-old walks in. Says, what is that? I said, chicken. He says, I want a piece. I said, all right, listen, you guys are going to split it. I'm not going to fight with you, and I don't want to get involved. You guys split it. So I turned to my older son, who was always taking advantage of the younger. I said, okay, divide it into 2. Split it. So he's about to reach for it because, you know, that's his dream, to divide with his younger brother. I said, split it in 2, and you pick the piece that you want. So my older son looks at me like this, like whoa. What's this? You know, this is strange. You know, normally, if he would divide it, it would be about an 80-20 split. You know, I was oh, he's going to divide it, and he's going to pick the one that he wants. You should have seen him dividing it up. He was sitting there for 20 minutes, like, you know, shifting. You know, if it has to show him that the other one should get, a microbe more than he gets. You know, it wasn't my idea. I wish I could take credit. I learned that from a camp counselor once. It wasn't my idea. You divide it, you pick. Which is a great method. Great method. That's the idea. So the Jewish people are compared to stars. Our whole function in life is to be like stars. The stars appease the moon, make sure the moon didn't feel bad. That's our job in life.